Good day. How are you doing today? So today I'm going to show you how to do the second derivative of functions. So let's just jump into it. So if you have got a function y, you can actually derive this function and that becomes dy dx. And you can actually further derive this dy dx to get d squared y over the x squared. This will be your second derivative. And this is your first derivative. Alternatively, you can have function of x, which you can first derive to become the first derivative of x, which will be the first derivative, and you can further differentiate that to give you your second derivative of x, and that's your second derivative. So in simple terms, the second derivative is actually a derivative of the first derivative, and that's how we do it. Moving on to some examples. So in this example, we want to determine the second derivative of y is equal to 2x to the power 11 minus 8x. So we first of all determine the first derivative, dy dx. In this case, that will be 22x to the power 10 minus 8. And we further differentiate that to get the second derivative, which will be d squared y over the x squared is equal to 220x to the power 9. Then the derivative of a constant is 0. So this is your second derivative. Then in example number 2, we want to determine the second derivative of f of x is equal to 3 over x to the power 5 plus 9 over x to the power 7. So the first thing that we want to do here is to make the variable the numerator, not the denominator. So applying the laws of indices, that will be 3 to the power of x to the power minus 5 plus 9 x to the power minus 7. Then we can determine the first derivative. And in this case, that will be negative 15 x to the power negative 6 minus 63 x to the power negative 8. Then you can further differentiate this to get your second derivative. And that will be equal to negative 6 times, that will be 90 x to the power negative 7. Then that will be plus 63 multiplied by 8. So negative 63 times negative 8. So that will be positive value. Then x to the power negative 9. And then you can simplify this. And that's how you do the second derivative of this function. Then in example number 3, given that y is 6x cubed minus 2x plus 3 over x, find the value of the second derivative when x is equal to 1. So the first thing that you want to do again is to make this denominator a numerator, because you don't want to differentiate when it's on the denominator, the variable. So that becomes 6x cubed minus 2x plus 3x to the power negative 1. And the first derivative will be equal to 18x to the power 2 minus 2 minus 3x to the power negative 2. And you can further differentiate this to get the second derivative, and that will be equal to 36x. Then the derivative of constant is 0 plus 6x to the power negative 3. Then after you got your second derivative, then you substitute that x into the second derivative, and then you get your answer. That will be d squared x over the x squared will be equal to just 36 multiplied by 1 plus 6 and 1 to the power negative 3. And that will give you 36 plus 6, that's your 42. And that's how you determine the second derivative of this question. Then moving on to the last example. Given that f of x is equal to 3x cubed minus 2x to the power 4 minus x to the power 5, find the value of the first derivative, the function of 2. So to do that, you just determine your first derivative of this function will be equal to 3x cubed minus 2. Oh no, I'm just rewriting the whole thing. That will be equal to 9x squared minus 8x to the power 3 minus 5x to the power 4. Then you just substitute the 2 into the first derivative. And that gives you 9 bracket 2 squared minus 8 bracket 2 cubed minus 5 bracket 2 to the power 4. And that gives you here a 36 minus 64, then minus 8 times, that is to the power, that's 16, then 16 times 5, that will be 80, so minus 80. And that will give you a final answer of negative 108. Right, then the part B, the second derivative. So then you do the second derivative, you just derive this first derivative, and the second derivative will be equal to 18x minus 24 x squared minus 20 x cubed. And then you substitute again the 2 into the second derivative. Then you get negative 220. Then the last part, C. So the last part is 1 divided by the function of 1. So you don't need to derive anything. The answer will just be 1 divided by the function of 1. So then you just substitute 1 there into the function. 1 to the power 4 minus 1 to the power 5. And that becomes 1 over 3 minus 2 minus 1. And that is equal to 0. And that is actually, so any number divided by 0 that is undefined. Remember, you cannot divide any number by 0. That gives you undefined. Hope this makes sense. I hope to see you in the next lesson, and have a good day.